That Was Yesterday podcast is brought to you by Define Mind and Body Wellness, my wellness center here in Glastonbury, Connecticut, where we specialize in holistic services to help shortcut the process so that you can see results fast, but learn to do it in a habitual way. So many of the topics we talk about are part of the program that our clients receive, except they get much more in-depth detail. Also, my workbook of the 10-week program to lose and never look back, which is only available to our patients at Define. If you are interested in holistic body fat spot reduction, or our pod to increase your metabolism, or our cold plunge, or our sauna, which is the best sauna in the world, that I promise you. I know that sounds biased, but you'll see for yourself. Please go to definewellnesscenter.com. You will be prompted to put your information in, and make sure to mention podcast when you do, as you will be eligible for a bigger discount on our introductory services because you are a listener. Appreciate you. Have a great day and enjoy today's podcast.
That's right. All right. All right, Joe. Here we are, man. We are. Uh-oh. Hello.
I got you.
I'm just trying to see on my end if there's a. All right. I don't know what that was, but I guess it should be good. So, all right, man. So we finished your program here at Define. How have you felt, and what types of changes have you noticed since starting?
So the biggest thing is I lost weight, but not just weight. I lost inches. So I know you're not a big concerned about weight as that might be, but my clothes are fit better. So that's a really good one. I like the fact that I can wear some clothes I was having trouble wearing, especially sport coats and slacks. You know, the waist is always the key thing. So that was good.
That's huge.
Definitely. I'm a little more flexible. You know, those are things I'm just going to have to do all the time. I mean, shit, my age is just, you got to do them. I mean, and I've got it down to about a pretty good 45 minutes every, the different programs you've given me. And then I do 20 minutes on the elliptical. So it's about an hour and 5-minute workout before I start my day. The other thing I'm doing is drinking a lot more water. I'm drinking the protein shake almost every day. And every single day I do a minimum of a 15, 16-hour fast before I start eating my day. I do choose most of the time fewer carbs in a week. So I'm making a lot more healthier choices based on your suggestions and on the program.
That's awesome. And I'm over here looking at the pictures as well. And I mean, they look great, man. We'll get into that in a second, but just to pick up on some of the things that you said, man, like looking at this, you lost. So this is really important. So I don't normally care about the number on the scale, but one of the things that we do at Define that's different is that we do the shape. We have a 3D imaging scale. So with that, we're looking at more than just the weight. We can see circumference measurements, body fat, muscle, the whole thing. So Joe, scale number since starting, you're down 6 pounds.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But this is the cool part. You're down 3% body fat, and your muscle has slightly increased. It hasn't gone down, but remember, we're not. So we'll stop here for a second to piggyback on the workout stuff. So with Joe had stopped working out when he first started here because he was in a lot of pain. So our goal for Joe is to get him into less pain, more flexibility. And that's what the focus has really been for his workouts. And so we're doing a lot of tissue work. We're doing a lot of mobility, a lot of corrective exercise, because ultimately his muscle wasn't bad, but we wanted to get him being able to do things that he wanted to do, like golfing and everyday tasks easier, right?
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, you're down over an inch off your waist.
Yep.
The hips are down almost an inch, which is great. You mentioned that some of your favorite suits are fitting better.
Yeah, that's really the key for me. Um, the the waist, you got to be able to button that button down at the belly button without it pulling across your belly, and your waist pants, around the waist have to fit. And I always find that as the waist goes, everything else in your body kind of follows. Everything sort of, the waist may lead, and then all the other parts of your body sort of follow. I've been on enough diets. I've been on enough, and the key thing you talked about for me is, and by the way, I'm just going to say this, pat myself on the back. I guarantee you, as I look around at other guys my age, 74, I'm in the top 1 percentile of fitness and health. I guarantee you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's easy to get lost because you're not your typical 74-year-old. You're working. I mean, we just talked about Joe's about to go to Mohegan Sun to cover a bunch of basketball games today, tomorrow, covering UConn. He's working full time. He looks younger, but you're right. For your age, I mean, these are great because look, for sure, without question, like women have it harder than men as we age, not a question, but that still means like men still, it's still hard for us as we age too, for all the reasons.
And I wanted to get back to the weight thing. I definitely had a little bit more muscle mass at the start, but then before we started. But to me now, flexibility is a lot more important than whether my biceps are a little bit more defined or my triceps are, or shoulders are a little bit bigger. Well, I'm really going now for flexibility, just for everyday movement, just for everyday carrying around the equipment I have to carry. And, for my golf swing, I actually expect my golf swing to be better this year than it's been maybe in 10 years prior, because I know I have more flexibility, and flexibility is everything in golf. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm not worried about whether or not I have my age a little bit. I'm not walking around my pool, trying to impress anybody, and whether I've got muscle. As long as I'm toned, and even I think you've said, as you've seen me a couple of times in the shop, I look more toned. I look leaner, is what you said. I think those were your words, and that's what I'm going for. I just want to look pretty good in my clothes on television. When I'm on the air, when I'm out in public, like I'm going to be at the Mohegan Sun this weekend. There's going to be probably a total of 25,000 people there. I'm walking around, for the total of the games, and and I gotta represent. And I look around at my colleagues my age, and they're huffing and they're puffing and they're out of shape. I don't say anything to them, but when they get to be older, it's going to be a lot harder, because I can tell you, the last 2 years have been the toughest for me trying to stay in shape. And again, the shoulder injury really set me back. But I think the exercises you've given me have really helped. In fact, I would say my shoulder's probably 80% better than it was when I walked into your place 10 weeks ago. Now, I'm doing some other things, but there's no question the exercises, the flex, the stretching that you're doing without weights, by the way, but just, using bands and various exercises like that, they've been a big help.
Yeah, that's so with Joe's program, basically what I set up for him was what I would call a corrective exercise. So, look, you can see the problem is with a lot of, when it comes to health, a lot of people will blame solely age, or they'll blame lack of discipline, or they'll blame this, that, the other thing. But the mind is what gets in a lot of our way. And, in other words, I'll give you an example of this. So like, you'll have a guy who, similar to Joe, maybe not as open-minded, who will be like, hey, I want to build muscle. I also want to have less pain. I also want to lose the most amount of weight. I also want to eat whatever I want, but I also want to get the best possible results. Like, the mind can put you in this sort of what I call self-sabotage land, where it's like you're just contradicting all the things that you want to do. But if you can at least accept that, like, the reality of like, hey, your expectations need to match your behaviors, and your behaviors need to match your expectations. And so for Joe, he didn't say, hey, man, I want to build as much muscle as possible. He said, hey, I'm in a lot of pain. My doctor says I need a knee replacement. I would like to be in less pain. So that was the focus of what we did. And when it comes to his exercise, and that was, a function of tissue work with the lacrosse ball, with the foam roller. It was mobility exercises. It was stretches, those sort of things. And sometimes when you have these conflicting goals, you have to prioritize. And so the priority there was muscle retention and increasing movement, increasing range of motion, and lessening pain. And the other thing too, Joe, about the cool thing here is that, like, speaking of these types of goals, like if you put a gun to my head and said, hey, dude, I want to lose the most amount of weight in the time working together, that plan would have looked different from what you did.
Absolutely.
What did I first tell you with nutrition? What was the first thing I said?
Forget the scale. The scale is your enemy.
Well, yes, but what else? When it comes to, what did I ask you about nutrition? Did I say, hey, I'm going to need you to diet, or what did we say?
I think you said, what are the things you like to eat the most? And then how can we fit, how can we monitor that and manage the things you like to eat the most to fit into a routine that, works for you, which we've done.
And we did that, right? And that's
Yep.
and that's what I get to, is like, so many people like will just say, oh, I got to lose weight and I'm just going to cut out carbs completely and I'm just going to cut calories and do all, like, yeah, you will lose more weight doing that in a set period of time. The problem is your quality of life you're sacrificing, and the bounce back is going to be worse whenever you stop eating like that. I always tell people, if the method of which you are going to lose can't be something you can sustain, then don't do it, because it's just going to bounce back.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that, because I've tried some other things where I've lost more weight quicker, and I could manage it for a while, but eventually, if you can't make it something you can do for the rest of your life, I guarantee you it's going to fail. So I easily could have cut back on more pasta and more pizza for 2 months, and I might have lost 7 or 8 more pounds. But then I'm going to, as soon as I'm done with this, say, okay, I did it. Now I'm slowly, and it's happened in the past, slowly going to go back to what I like to do all the time. And I'm going to gain that weight back with this plan. I still have pizza once a week. I still have my pasta once in a while, and I can do this for the rest of my life. It's a manageable diet, and that was something I had to try to figure out. I didn't want to lose a lot of weight, knowing it's impossible to keep that weight off if you like to eat food.
Yeah, right on. And as a fellow Paisan, it's a part of our blood, and that's great, but again, it goes back to the mindset. Like Joe was talking about, like, his expectations match his behaviors, and vice versa. And we can get in our own way with that stuff, but that's great to hear that you feel comfortable with that moving forward. And like, also too, another thing on these same lines, oftentimes, especially working a lot with women, it's very hard to lose. So a lot of women I get to work with prior to coming to me will do things like cut out carbs completely, cut calories completely, meal prep endlessly when they don't have a free hour in the day. And then they wonder why they can't sustain it. It's like, well, because that's just too much to sustain. Joe, you didn't have to meal prep, did you? You were eating, you eat out lunch almost every day, right?
I have every day I have lunch, because I'm up here in Rocky Hill. So I'm having a salad every day. Now it's a big salad, but again, there's no question. The key is you've got to be able to figure out what is realistic for the rest of your life. Now, I think maybe for younger people, maybe they haven't gone through the failure part of losing weight and then gaining it back. But for those of us who have, I'll tell you right now, when I was in my 30s, I used to go from January 1st to March 31st and cut out carbs completely. And I'd lose 20 pounds. No problem. But what happened after March 31st? Now I'm back to carbs, and it's slowly, no, you don't gain it all back fast, but you end up gaining it back, and then you're back in the same spot. So for me, at my age, I'm looking at what I think is realistic, my pants fit, and these were not my fat boy pants. These were not my thinnest person ever pants, but those pants right in the middle, which I kept. They fit. I look at it, I say, I'm very comfortable with the way I look right now, weight wise. I'm comfortable with what I'm eating. I I thought the hardest thing was going to be the 16-hour fast. It's really not. I got to tell you, when it is hard at 9 o'clock at night, but if then I'll have water or something, just maybe the greens I'll have just to knock that edge off. But you sleep for 8 hours if you're lucky enough to. I get to do 8 hours. And you get up at 7:30, you're already 12 hours through. So the fasting wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, especially because it makes me look forward to lunch at 11:30.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the tactics we use to keep your metabolism working and making sure that you can have your cake and eat it too. In other words, speaking of your metabolism, your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, which is the base amount of calories you need to eat at rest per day. So if you were just and this is why starvation diets don't work. If you're just sitting on a couch all day, you still have a BMR that your body's going to run through minimally just by doing nothing. So if you're on your feet, you're moving a lot, you're using your brain a lot, you're using more calories. If you don't have adequate calories, you're going to have some deficiencies. So Joe, your basal metabolic rate has increased as well, which reflects a higher metabolism.
Oh, great.
Your metabolism's increased. Also, your health score has increased 5 points, which is an algorithm that the shape scale, the 3D scale that we use, that is what the health score is, but it represents what it sounds like, overall health.
What about my age?
What's that?
What about my age score? I think I was one under.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I'm going to go back to that in a second.
Okay.
But I just want to say this as well. You lost 3.4 pounds of visceral fat. Do you remember what that is?
Yeah, that's the best. That's the stuff around the waist. That's the organ killer.
Yeah, that's not the around the waist. That's a fat on the waist, behind the fat in the waist. So it's an absolute last fat. We have people who come into us who've lost 50, 100 pounds, who had done a GL1P, who come to us for skin tightening or spot reduction, and their visceral fat is still really high, losing 100 pounds. So yeah, you lost 3.4 pounds off your visceral fat, which is very good because that is an indicator for men that directly correlates with heart attacks. So that's awesome. To answer your question though, Joe, I don't have that answer, and here's why. So what Joe's talking about is the metabolic age. And so when he did his introductory appointment, or whenever you come into Define and do your introductory appointment, we use a quicker scale. And that scale gives us basically a good idea of where people are at. And one of the metrics it uses is metabolic age. However, when you start a package with us, we use our high-tech 3D imaging scale.
Right.
And so that one doesn't give a metabolic age. That measures metabolic increase by increase in BMR, which is the basal metabolic rate. So next time you're in, if you want to see that, we can do that other scale. But I don't have that data because we didn't post one on that scale, if that makes sense.
It does.
So, but yeah, man, I'm really happy for you, man. I'm proud of you because, and also too, let's just all put this in perspective. He didn't diet. He didn't have to diet. He was just consistent following the plan.
Yep.
He wasn't training super hard. He was consistent with doing corrective exercises. He only came into Define once a week. Now, we tell people if you want fast results, twice a week, but once a week is perfectly fine. You're going to get results that way. So great job, man. Happy for you. As we wrap this up, was there anything you were surprised by in this process?
I think I surprised myself with the fact that I was able to fast. I thought I would miss breakfast a lot. I don't. I like going into your place because your staff is really good. They're very attentive. So I felt comfortable in there. I got to tell you, for a while, I didn't think there were any other men in the program because when I go during the day, there's all women, and we struck up nice conversations. They knew who I was, so we got to talk a little bit about. And it's funny, we didn't really talk about why we were there or what what her particular problem might have been or mine. We just struck up conversations, but it was always friendly. The equipment's great. Believe me, the least pain I have during the entire day is when I'm in those pods.
Mm.
I love those pods are great. But I think my biggest takeaway is you have to be realistic, as you said, what your goals are. You can't make them so crazy that they're gonna work for 3 months. That's the other thing. I do drink a lot more water. Unfortunately, at my age, that means I have to pee a lot more. The first thing I do when I show up at your place is, is head for the bathroom when I'm
What
driving
I,
in
you know
from
what I,
Mayflower.
yeah,
What's that?
I call it bathroom cardio. Because getting up, because we all look at the downsides of getting up to pee, but we don't look up the upsides, which is, well, you got your ass up and you got some more steps in that you would have not gotten in otherwise. Plus, not to mention all the benefits of water. But I'm right there with you, man. I'm up there moving around a lot as well, peeing it out.
No, again, anybody who's listening to this, I would say have one goal or three goals, but they have to be goals that you can continue at a reasonable basis for the rest of your life. They can't be, I've learned the hard way, there's no spot fixes. You have to make them a lifestyle. So make them realistic. I feel like I'm talking like I'm you telling people what to do, but this is what I've learned. You have to make your goals realistic. Look, it took longer. It's going to take longer to get where you want to get. In fact, I'm not done. I know, I'm going to continue to follow the program exactly. I'm not going to be in that pod as much, but I'm going to follow the exercises. I hope you don't pull them off my website. I'm going to keep using the exercises. I'm going to keep drinking the water. I'm going to keep fasting, and I'm going to keep making the smart choices on food. And I think that's a lifestyle. And if I could stay at this weight and this BMR and get some more flexibility, I'll look good in the coffin.
Well, we got plenty of, we got plenty of time till that chapter hits, but yeah. And just to, to echo that, everything you said, spot on. And that's what, I've been in coaching weight loss and nutrition and fitness for over 20 years. This technology, our spot reduction, our medical grade red light pads, our metabolic boost pod, been using that technology for 4 years. The beautiful thing about this technology is that it helps the issues we have with our mind. In other words, it accelerates the process. Like, look, I want to be very clear here. Had Joe and I just did the corrective exercise and the nutritional changes, he probably wouldn't be fitting into all of the suits that he's fitting into. He wouldn't have lost that much off of his stomach. That was made possible by the technology. The nutrition and the lifestyle stuff is supporting that, right? So the technology is really an opportunity to shortcut the process so that you can do the things the right way, but not get frustrated you're not seeing results, which is what happens to so many people,
Seeing results. But you have to be patient, as you say, seeing the results. Because what I find is it's kind of snowballs. So it may take a while to get that first result, but then once it starts to happen, it continually happens. It keeps happening, but it may take, you can't get frustrated at the start. You got to hang in there, follow the program. I should be doing commercials for you. Follow the program and once it starts, just stay with it and it goes.
Yeah, man. Well, right on. And just the last, just to speak to what he's saying is that, with our program, it's medical grade holistic spot reduction. It is not a magic trick. It's an alternative route. And that's why there's no downsides. It's not at all bad for your body. It's very good in a lot of ways. In fact, it helps your skin. It helps with not just your fat cell, it helps reduce inflammation and much, much more on a cellular level, but it's an alternative route. So for us to see change in a mirror, Joe did a one size program. For us to get to that one size reduction, you need to get to a 10% reduction at that one target area in order to see changes in the mirror and how your clothes fit most of the time. That's why we're able to guarantee outcomes, because we know the data, what it looks like and how long it takes. So when he says you got to be patient, if you're going to do a one size program, that's going to be 12 sessions, 3 months. If you're going to be doing it in 6 weeks, twice a week, obviously sooner. So, but good stuff, man. I appreciate you. I look forward to continue on this journey with you. And thank you for inspiring the world here, our world anyway, in Connecticut with crushing it at a young 74.
Well, I'm glad I saw, I see you walking through the station. And I always say, man, that guy looks good in his t-shirts. And then one of the episodes you did was about gut health. And at the time I was having, it was bloated or whatever it was. And we struck up a conversation, and 12 weeks later, here we are. And I'm way, way, way ahead of where, instead of slowly declining, I'm slowly getting better, which is rare, when you get to your 70s. Usually it's going the other way.
That's right. That's right. Well, good stuff, brother. Appreciate you.
See you soon.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Bye.